Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew and today we are reviewing the HIYA Toys Exquisite Basic Godzilla Heat Ray version from Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, I need to make everyone aware that this is the first time I have ever had a HIYA Toys figure. I'm not too familiar with the history of their company and their previous works, which I know consist of mainly like Alien Predator figures, similar to that of NECA, and you're going to be hearing me say that a lot. But to summarize, NECA has always been my go-to company. Since I was pretty much starting out with Godzilla figures, they were my go-to. Sadly, in 2020, they had to discontinue their line because Playmates wanted the master license for themselves, and all other companies were temporarily stripped of the license. And if they wanted to come back, they chose to come back. NECA did not, unfortunately. But along came HIYA to fill that empty void with articulated, highly affordable Godzilla figures for the market. So, does HIYA Toys deliver on this figure, or is it just another dud in what is NECA's grave? Let's find out. You've heard it once and you've heard it twice. The sculpt and paint is absolutely beautiful. I can say, within the 8 years I've been collecting, this figure might single-handedly have the best sculpt I have ever seen on a MonsterVerse figure. And that's saying something because everyone knows how much I love the NECA molds. I'm not saying like those are terrible. No, they absolutely were killer. This is absolutely, with no pun intended, legendary. The spray on the eyes and the mouth, it looks so gradient. It almost looks like there's something glowing. When we take a look at the inside of the mouth, you can tell that the amount of care and detail towards the sculpt and paint is absolutely superb. The teeth are individually sculpted and kind of painted individually, but the tongue as well is especially done really well. And especially like the detail inside the mouth and the membrane, there's so much going on here. The neck, however, despite the fact that it is really well sculpted and undeniably really well detailed, the paint is a bit on the iffy side for me. Not only is it in the technicality incorrect spot, because the neck shouldn't be glowing. It should actually be the gills that are glowing, because, that is a gateway to Godzilla's atomic breath, which is coming out of his mouth. The application itself kind of looks less like paint and more like nail polish. And to prove it, I custom painted this finger puppet back in 2019, and I used a very similar color blue to this one. You see how that looks? The chest, however, this place looks awesome. Like, look at how well this is washed with the chest. However, I will again say that the paint transition between the shoulders to the chest, it's so sudden. It's from blue to gray. So it almost looks like he's wearing a vest of some sorts, as if he's a police officer. The claws themselves, though, look fantastic, and honestly, for the detail that was put into such a tiny little area of the body, they sure knocked it out of the park with this one. And even though it doesn't pick it well up on camera, the dry brushing on the legs is absolutely apparent IRL, depending on the lighting. And when you can see it, you can really see it. It is amazing. It almost looked like something straight out of the movie. It is straight out of the movie, honestly. Every little crack and crevice is one-to-one with what we saw in the film. And these big, mean claws look absolutely awesome. However, I will say, it reminds me a lot of the promo Godzilla foot-crushing little objects for King of the Monsters. And now we come to everyone's favorite section, the spines. And wow, look at how majestic these things are. Not only are these probably the best looking spines I've seen in a long time on a figure, they're probably the most movie accurate. Playmates did a fully translucent do-over, SH Monster Arts did a nice dry brushing and wash, and NECA did a really nice stylization. But this is 100% movie accurate. And coming down all the way to the tail, it's so dry brushed in there. Like, it is done so expertly, if that's even a word, and it's done so well. I seriously cannot get over the fact that HIYA Toys did it in such a really nice way. So to summarize the sculpt and paint, it seems that HIYA Toys was prioritizing more movie accuracy over stylization, and in my opinion, they really knocked it out of the park. I have never seen a Godzilla figure this movie accurate before since the NECA 54, and that's saying something. For articulation, we actually have quite a bit. So first of all, we have a hinge at the jaw, but here's the coolest part. We have a hinge at the tongue. This is something that caught me by surprise, because initially I didn't know that. So we can actually go up about that far, and it's a bit tricky to get out, so you have to actually pry your nail into it there. There we go, down about that far, down to the bottom of the mouth. And do keep in mind when you close the jaw, it actually does shift the tongue up. Next, we're going to talk about the head. So, on first glance, you might notice the multiple segments and think that there's tons of ball joints. Not true. It's actually just a barbell style ball joint that is essentially this big long rod that sticks to the head all the way to the neck. And how I found this out was actually kind of funny. See, I thought it was like the original figure where there was like a hinge joint in between there. Turns out I was wrong. But may I just say, for the ball joint that's here and the ball joint that's here, I have never seen ingenuity like this. They tried something similar to the Monster Arts and it kind of flipped. This one, because they're overlapping, it looks so organic. Now what I mean by this is, look at the gills. You see how they clump together when Godzilla turns his head like this? That's natural. When Godzilla extends his neck like this to the other side, they go with it. That's natural. The same thing happens on the opposite side, of course, but it works so fluidly. And that's honestly what I love most about this figure, is that they found a way to make it look organic, like a real creature. And honestly, the fact that there's not much gaps really saves this figure a ton. However, there is a fault. See, because they're segmented, the way it's cut down here, it kind of latches on. If you were to slide this forward and then try bring it back up, this part of the head kind of gets caught in the gap. So I suggest just kind of leaving that alone. And if you must absolutely look down, do it at your own risk. The shoulders have a ball joint here, of course, so you can go forward and back, up and down, pretty much the standard. And you also have a singular hinged elbow. They can kind of rotate in and out, forward and back, and has a ball joint here at the wrist, along with a ball jointed ab crunch, which is still relatively tight on mine, but as you can tell, there is a gap there, so it must be one big joint in there. Next, we're going to go over the hips, which both of them can go out like that far, in about that far, can rotate, I'm assuming 360, but I don't want to like push it, because I just got this thing. So we have hinged knees, which, yeah, they are double hinged, or that's a single hinge with just a sleeve, I am actually not too sure. And we have ball jointed feet, which mine are very tight. And for the tail, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 joints running from the tip to the base. And all these joints work really well together. However, I will say that they are kind of noisy. So if that's something that puts you off, maybe don't move the tail. But it is really good to have this sort of range of movement. So the sculpt and paint and articulation, I would say, articulation at least, this is awesome. It is essentially just a big NECA figure, but for what the articulation is, I'm really surprised, especially like the head movement, of just how good this figure is overall.